Unfortunately, with the economic downturn last year, we had to place all further project development activities and the engineering that had been underway on hold. When we are in a position to resume engineering as revenues become available, we will revisit priorities with you to make sure that we're going through in a consensus manner in terms of what the priorities are. And I know there's been some debate in terms of what that priority, what the highest priority should be. Total unfunded cost for this section of US 50 is over $400 million.
I don't think there's a dispute. We all agree our highest priority is 304, a 304 overpass.
No, I'm talking about within the US 50 section.
I understand
itself.
that, but if money becomes available, our highest priority is 304. There's no confusion about that.
No, there is no confusion. In fact, that's the next project.
I understand. I just want to make sure. So you're talking about within the
I'm talking about
50.
within the US 50 project.
Yeah, well, you can probably deal with that debate once we get 304 done.
Okay. All right, so the next project is US 301 at Maryland 304. Queen Anne's County, highest priority. Scope of this project would construct a new grade separated interchange to replace the existing at-grade intersection. Project planning has been complete. We were underway with engineering on this when the economic downturn hit last year, and we had to place the project on hold. Engineering is about 25% complete at this point. And again, when funding does become available, we'll resume engineering and then subsequently look to fund right-of-way and construction. Total unfunded cost is in about the $50 million range for this interchange. We do recognize it as your highest priority, but at this point, with the current financial situation, we've basically had to put virtually all of our projects, major projects, on hold. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to...
We had another bad accident here just a couple days ago, really bad. And is there anything, and we asked this before, is there anything at all that can be done on an intermediate basis to make it safer for the folks who live here? And remember, probably 25% of the school buses in the county have to go through that intersection to get to school. So it's four schools have to go.
3 miles of that.
Have to go.
So you've got a truck stop, you've got a state highway facility, you've got our Department of Public Works, you've got our emergency services center.
State police have a little office over there, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, and I'll keep this very, very brief. You certainly are aware of where we stand with respect to 304. We were very much encouraged when engineering funding was made available, and in very, very short order that went away. This has been our number one priority for more than a decade, and I guess the real point I want to make is, if this kind of project isn't funded during the best of times, when you have the resources, we certainly are well aware that it's not going to be funded when there are limited resources or your budget has been impacted. So without, beating the dead horse, it's important that when you do have resources to put towards a project, that you put it towards projects that really deserve the kind of priority that this does, because we certainly understand as a relatively small rural jurisdiction, we're not going to have the resources directed to us most of the time in any significant way. But when they are available, I think it's more incumbent upon you folks to try to make sure you get those projects funded when the resources are available, because we certainly know when they're not, we're going to be at the bottom of the list, and so are our priorities. So I would just encourage you, the next time funds are available, we make sure that we get it done.
And what can be done on an intermediate basis to make it safer today? Because we're realists here. We understand things are bad, and it's going to be bad for a while. There's no magic pot of money y'all have, except for maybe the stimulus money, but apparently that doesn't apply to this. So what can you do? Is there J-turns? Is there something you can do from a safety point of view to make it safer today?
I know Richard spent a lot of time looking at this issue, so I'm going to ask him to speak.
Before we get off of that, and once again, I hate to keep beating a dead horse here, but 404 for Queen Anne's County has almost no economic value whatsoever. And yet every year monies that they keep saying, everybody keeps saying, look at the money that's coming into Queen Anne's County, and really that project is no more than to get the people to the beach faster. It does nothing for the safety of the residents of Queen Anne's County. You're spending $47 million there, and that would almost be enough to put this overpass out here at 304, which would have a direct effect on our youth. And, I can't tell you, we could probably sit here half the afternoon of the friends that I've had killed out there at 304. And, it just doesn't seem like, we are really putting our, safety first over getting people to the beach as quickly as we can.
Well, I agree that safety is our highest priority. The governor and the secretary have made that very clear. The fact that your highest priority project is a safety-driven project, I think, moves it up the list in terms of when funding does become available, because safety is our highest priority. That's been made very clear to me by my bosses. With regard to the issue of funding of Route 404, that is a safety-driven issue as well. It is, I can tell you, driven far more by safety considerations than it is by trying to provide capacity for beach traffic. But recognizing that US 301, Maryland 304 is a safety-driven project, that will be reflected in priorities as we do get money available. Richard has spent a fair amount of time over the last few years looking at short-term safety issues at US 301, Maryland 304, and I would like to ask him for his thoughts on what could be done in the interim.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Under your all's leadership, we do have a group together now. And I know some are in the audience. Lieutenant Boardman's on it with us. Your Sheriff Hoffman's on it with us. Our community safety representative Terry Ober is on it with us. And we do have some ideas. I think, and believe me, we certainly know the importance of this intersection. And I don't want to forget some of the successes we have had. We have built 2 slip ramps there that have helped relieve some of the congestion at the intersection. We have some ideas that we're going to be looking at that could be interim improvements. We're talking about things like a lane drop through that corridor. We're nervous about it. I shouldn't even be, well, yeah, I will tell you about it. You know, I appreciate the fact that you talk about our open communication. We have ideas of dropping a lane there to allow us more median width. In order to do that, though, we're afraid it's going to create a little bit of congestion with, if we have to do Jersey barriers or traffic barrels, that we don't want to confuse the motorists. And again, our friends in law enforcement we're meeting regularly about that. So we do have some ideas that we can do interim improvements.
One of the things we did in other areas, we had a concern on 18 where the high school is set on Kent Island, and we had another area we had concerns, and Sheriff Hoffman started having an officer just there when the kids were coming in. Is that something that we should consider? Should we consider, you know, if we can't do capital improvements, should we consider possibly figuring out the schedule at least when the buses are coming through, and possibly having officers stationed there at this point in some time? And Sheriff Hoffman isn't here, so we can ask him to handle the staffing of it. I'm sure he won't mind. But I'm just saying, I mean, is that something we should consider? Would that solution work? What do you think, Lieutenant? I mean,
well, if I may first, and then certainly our friends who are the, one of the things, and we have talked about that, and one of the things that we're concerned about is the presence of an officer, trooper. Is that going to help, or could it hinder us? You've heard me talk over the years about one of the things that we've got to get drivers to do is concentrate. And if they're coming, and historically, when they come to this intersection, we need their 100% concentration, and we're not getting it. And I'm concerned that if there is a law enforcement officer presence there, that it could compound our safety problem there. Because when you think about the multiple turns and the multiple actions that are going on out there, one officer or 2 officers just couldn't handle it. It could be a deterrent. I don't know if Lieutenant Boardman would like to add anything to that or not.
We received a request from one of the commissioners about that. We looked into that. I think it would be counterproductive. Police officer, that's a high-speed intersection on a main controlled access highway route. Now, the intersections you're talking about that the sheriff has deputies at, like for instance, down at the high school, at the entrance to the Kent Island High School, that's not a controlled access highway. That's a lower speed, easier to manage with one officer.
well, and that's worked. I mean, we were having accidents there almost every week, and now we're not. So that actually obviously was a good idea, but if it doesn't,
There's a couple things that work there, because yes, we're not getting the accidents there either. And it's a couple things that work there. There's been a new design that was placed into effect there at State Highway and County Roads worked together and produced nice crosswalks there with signs. And they also moved the stop line out farther on Route 8 so that there's a longer point for vision for the operators coming out of the high school so that they can see oncoming traffic to make that left-hand turn a lot easier on Route 8. That along, so those type of improvements along with a deputy out there during peak traffic times has done wonders.
But here, and I know you explained to me why J-turns weren't a good idea there, and that was logical to me. I mean, we trust you. You're the engineer, and you guys are the law enforcement guys. If there's things that can be done, can we do them? I'm just concerned that if we don't do, I mean, we've had some horrible things happen at that intersection,
Yes, you have.
and we're gonna have an accident with a school bus, and we need to do everything we can to prevent that before it happens. That's my concern.
I think the problem is that, you know, there's no lights from Middletown, Delaware, all the way down
Flying.
through there. And particularly that section of end of the police barracks and the State Roads Commission that is on that little knoll. You can't call it a hill, but they come up over top of that knoll and, you know, then there's the crossing right there. You know, they don't really have enough time. If you're coming down there driving a tractor trailer or even a car coming down there at 65 or 70, which they do, you know, there's just not enough time. If there's a bus that's crossing there that may have some problems or something, we could really have a disaster. If there was some way that we could put maybe a light system back further. I know you've got the light, you've got the one sign there that talks about the crossover out there, just about where Tidewater Publishing is, but maybe something even further back by the railroad or something like that with just a flashing light to say, you know, caution, you know, buses crossing this particular time, or something just to slow people down and to know that, you know, that there are children that are crossing.
We
this
have
area.
available to us some national experts on what's called human factors in traffic safety. And I'm going to ask that we work through our Director of Office of Traffic and Safety and bringing some of those experts in to look at this particular location, see if there are some ideas that we may not have thought of to address this particular location. So we'll do that as follow-up.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.